We continue now at the top of Daf Kufnun Aleph Amid Aleph in Meseches Bava Basra. This is Bava Basra Daf 151a. This Daf is sponsored by David Grossman. Thank you for your sponsorship. If you'd like to sponsor an Amid or Daf, see the description box below, and see the description box below to see how you can support this channel. On the previous Amid, the Gemara was proving that a shtar, a document, is included in the term nechasim. If somebody says property, it means to include shtaros as well. And the Gemara continues its proof and brings a Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Kosvin shtar lemocher v'afal pi she'ein lokeach imo. We can write a shtar for the seller, even though the buyer is not there with him. And the halach is, Kevan shehechzik zeh bekarka, once the buyer makes a kinyan chazaka on the land, nikne shtar kol makam shehu, so then he acquires the document wherever it is. V'zuhi shashaninu, and that's what we learned, nechasim she'ein lahem achrayis, that when it comes to property, where there's no achrayis, meaning to say when you have movable property, niknin imna hanechasim sheyesh lahem achrayis, that can be acquired together with the property that does have a lien, meaning land. When you acquire the land, bekesef uv'shtara v'chazaka, when you acquire the land with money, with documents, with a kinyan chazaka, so you acquire this other property as well, and that's referring to shtaros. And you see again from this Mishnah that shtaros are included within the term nechasim. And the Gemara continues, Behema ikri nichse, when it comes to animals as well, they're also referred to as nichse, they're also considered to be property. The Tanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, this is from Meseches Shkolim, hamakdish nechasav, let's say a person is makdish his property, so there we see again the term nechasim, the term property, v'haisa behen behema, and included in his property is animals, ru'uya lagavi mizbeach, and those animals are fit to be brought on the mizbeach as a carbon, so zecharim olos, so then that property, the male animals, they should be brought as olos, unekevos, imachru, letzarche, zivche shlamim, and the female animals, they can be sold in order to bring carbon shlamim. And so you see from the context of the Mishnah again, that these animals are considered to be nechasim, they're considered to be property. And the Gemara continues, Ofos ikri nichse, also birds, that's also considered to be property. Titanan, as we learned in the Mishnah, this is also from Meseches Shkolim, hamakdish nechasav, if somebody is makdish his property, again the word nechasim, v'hayu ben devorim haro'in legavi mizbeach, and among his property are items that can be brought on the mizbeach, yenos, shemonim, v'ofos, if you have wine, you have oils, you have birds, and so again you see from this Mishnah that ofos, birds, are considered to be nechasim. And the Gemara continues, Tefillin ikri nichse, Tefillin also, that's also called nechasim, that's also called property. Tetnan, as we learned in a Mishnah, hamakdish nechasim, if somebody's makdish his property, so malin lo tefillin, we have to assess the value of the tefillin, that's included within nechasim. And the Gemara continues, they had the following question. Sefer Torah mai, when it comes to a Sefer Torah, what's the halacha? Is that considered to be nechasim? Kevin delom is davin da'asr lizvune. On the one hand, you could say, since it's something that's not supposed to be sold, indeed it's forbidden to sell the Sefer Torah. So lav nichsehu, maybe that's not considered to be property because there are certain restrictions on what the person can do with it. Odilmar, maybe Kevin de Mizdabin, since it's something that could be sold. Lil Motorah v'li, so Isha, let's say he needs to sell it in order to learn Torah, or he needs to sell it in order to be able to get married, so then it is able to be sold, so Nichsehu, so maybe it is considered to be property, and the Gemara says Teiku, the Gemara leaves that as a question. And the Gemara continues, Imei de Rav Zutra bar Tuvia, the mother of Rav Zutra bar Tuvia, Kasvinu lenichsel Rav Zutra bar Tuvia, she wrote over all of her property to her son, Rav Zutra bar Tuvia, de boy linsuve le Rav Zavid, because she wanted to get married to Rav Zavid. The idea over here is, this is like a case of a mavreches, that's a woman who's trying to protect her property from the man that she's going to be marrying from her husband. In order to protect the property, she transfers it over to a third party. In this case, the third party was her son. She transferred it over to Rav Zutra bar Tuvia. And then in Seva v'gersha, what happened was she got married, and then she ended up getting divorced, and so she wanted her property back. Asi l'kami de Rav Vivi bar Abaya, she came before Rav Vivi bar Abaya for a ruling. Amar, he said, Mishum in Suve, the condition was that you get married. Va in Seva, and you did indeed get married, and therefore the property transfers, and you can't get it back. Amar lei Rav Huna Breder Rav Yoshua, so Rav Huna Breder Rav Yoshua, he said to him, what kind of ruling is that? Mishum da'asum mi muloi, because you come from muloi, amrisu mile mulyasa, therefore you say things that are mulyasa. One understanding is he comes from the house of Eli, and the idea is they have shortened lives, and therefore you say something that is shortened, so to speak, you issue a ruling that's not properly thought out. And he explains as follows, Afilu leman da'amar mavreches kani, even according to the one who says that when you have a case like this, which again is a mavreches, that it creates a kinyan, hani mili heicha de lo galia daita, that's true in a situation where she didn't make it clear what her intention is. Avalacha, but over here, galia daita de mishum and suvehu, it's clear that she's giving this to the third party because she's getting married, meaning she's trying to protect her her property. In this case, she got married and then divorced, so certainly she will get her property back. And the Gemara continues, Ime de Rami Bar Chama, the mother of Rami Bar Chama, but Ursa Kesavtinu Lenichsa Rami Bar Chama. In the evening, she wrote her property over to her son, Rami Bar Chama. But Zafar, then in the morning, Kesavtinu Rav Ukva Bar Chama, she wrote it over to another one of her sons, Rav Ukva Bar Chama. She gave it to a different one of her sons. So the question is, which one of her instructions is considered to be valid? Also, Rami Bar Chama l'kamei de Rav Sheshes. Rami Bar Chama came before Rav Sheshes. Ukmei benichsei, Rav Sheshes said that he gets the property. He was the first one to receive the property. Also, Rav Ukva Bar Chama kamei de Rav Nachman. Rav Ukva Bar Chama, he went before Rav Nachman. Ukmei benichsei, and he said that he's the one that should get the property, meaning the later son to receive the property should receive the property. And so they had a discussion. Also, Rav Sheshes l'kamei de Rav Nachman. Rav Sheshes came before Rav Nachman. Amar Lei said to him, "My time ukmei mar l'Rav Ukva Bar Chama. What's the reason you gave the property to Rav Ukva Bar Chama? Imishum dahadra ba. If you're going to say that the reason is because she retracted, there is a halacha when you have a matnas shchimera, when you have a gift from someone on their deathbed. So let's say they recover, they're able to retract the gift because the idea is they're just giving it under the assumption that they're going to die. But he said over here you can't retract. V'ashchiva, over here she actually did die, and so therefore that original gift that she gave to Rami Bar Chama, that should be the one that's valid, not the one that she gave to Rav Ukva Bar Chama. And the Gemara continues, Amar Lei said to him, Hachi Amar Shmuel, this is what Shmuel says, Kol she'ilu amad chozer b'matana. So any situation where if the person would recover, they're able to retract the gift, so they can retract even in a situation, let's say they retract and they decide, like in this case, to give it, she gives it to one of her other sons, you can retract in that fashion as well, even in a situation where she would eventually die, as what happened in this case. But the Gemara says you can't bring a proof from Shmuel. Amor damar Shmuel liatzma. What Shmuel was saying was, if the person retracts, he's able to retract in order to keep the property for himself. But liacher miyamar, did Shmuel mean to say that a person is able to retract the gift from one person and give it to another person? Amar Lei said to him, yes, that's what Shmuel meant. Befeirish Amar Shmuel, Shmuel said explicitly, bein liatzma, bein la'acher, that this halacha is true whether he's retracting in order to keep the property for himself, or if he's retracting in order to give it to someone else, and therefore her retraction over here, where she takes it away from Rami Bar Chama, instead gives it to Rav Ukva Bar Chama, that will be effective. And the Gemara continues, Ime de Rav Amram Chasida Havala Meluga de Shtaroi, the mother of Rav Amram Chasida, she had a bundle of shtaros. This is a bundle of documents that she was able to use to collect debts. They were very valuable. Kikashachma, when she was dying, Amra, she said, Lahave la Amram Bri, these documents should go to Amram, my son. He'll be able to collect the debts. Also, Acho l'kamid Rav Nachman. So his brothers, they came before Rav Nachman. Amruleh, and they said to him, V'alo mashach, but it can't be a good kinyan because he never made a mashicha. He never pulled it. There was never a physical action of a kinyan, and therefore he doesn't acquire the documents. Amar Lui said back to them, Divrei shchimera, the words of a shchimera. In this case, she was on her deathbed. Kechsuvin v'chimesurin damu. That's like it's written and given. There is no need for a kinyan, and therefore the transfer of the documents to Rav Amram Chasida was effective. And the Gemara continues, Achse de Rav Tuvi bar Rav Masna, Kisavtinu lenichsel Rav Tuvi bar Rav Masna, the sister of Rav Tuvi bar Rav Masna, she wrote over her property to her brother Rav Tuvi bar Rav Masna, but Tzafar, that's what she did in the morning. Lefanya, in the evening, also Rav Achtavoy bar Rav Masna, Rav Achtavoy bar Rav Masna, he came and Bochel, and he was crying in front of her, and this was her other brother. Amar Lo, he said to her, Hashta Amri Mar Tzurva Merabonon, Umar Lav Tzurva Merabonon. Now people are going to say, since you gave all of the property to Rav Tuvi and you didn't give it to me, they're going to say it's because the master, it's because Rav Tuvi is a scholar, and they're going to say, myself, I am not a scholar, that's why you chose to give it to him. And so then she changed her mind, Kisaftinu Nihile, so she wrote over the property to him. Also, L'kamid Rav Nachman, he came before Rav Nachman. The question is, again, can she retract the gift and change it? Amar Lei said to him, like we said above, Hachi Amar Shmuel, this is what Shmuel says, Kol Shilu Amad Chozer, any case where if the person recovers, there would be a retraction in that case, so Chozer b'matanazu, he can retract the gift as well and give it to somebody else. And the Gemara continues, Achseid Rav Dimi Bar Yosef, the sister of Rav Dimi Bar Yosef, Haveloa Piskita de Pardesa. She had a piece of land, it was an orchard. Kalemas to have Cholsha, anytime that she was sick, she thought she was going to die, have a Mikni Alei Nehile, so she would transfer it over to him. She would give it to her brother, Rav Dimi Bar Yosef. And we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Kuf Nun Aleph Amud Beis.